Hey, welcome to today's video. I'm Richard Chapo. I'm an internet lawyer in San Diego, California, and I have a dog named Tigger who snores like a train chugging down the tracks. So today we're talking about the CCPA, specifically the Do Not Sell My Personal Information requirements. And the CCPA is the California Consumer Privacy Act. It is a new privacy law in California. It goes into effect January 1st, 2020. So the CCPA is somewhat revolutionary as a privacy law in the United States because it grants consumers quite a few rights that they can exercise in relation to the data and privacy practices of businesses. So we're talking about a situation where businesses are collecting personal information from consumers and using it in various manners. So one of those rights is the right to opt out of the sale of personal information. What that means is a consumer can contact a business and say, hey, I know you've collected personal information about me. I don't want you to sell it to third parties. And the business must comply with that. Okay. Now, the important thing to understand, and we're not going to get into detail on this because this will turn into a 3-hour video, but personal information, the phrase personal information and the word sell, they're broader in meaning than what you are thinking about. Sell doesn't just mean the exchange for cash. It means the exchange for any valuable consideration, and personal information is defined as everything from a person's name to their geolocation to their IP address to basically anything that directly or indirectly can identify them. So we're talking about very broad definitions. So the fact that you're thinking, well, I don't sell my email list or my customer list to somebody else doesn't mean that you've complied with this requirement. It doesn't mean that you don't have to worry about this. For most sites, these links are going to be mandatory, and you want to comply with this section. So make sure you talk to your attorney about it. But don't just think, hey, I don't sell my information off for money, so I don't have to worry about this. That's not the case. It's a much broader requirement than that. And quite frankly, you're probably going to have to comply. So let's just talk about it. So the right to opt out, what do you have to do? The CCPA requires some specific links be used, and they're called the mandatory link provisions. And they have to have anchor text that says, and you can see it there in 2A, do not sell my personal information. Now, this link must appear on your homepage, and it must also appear in your privacy policy, or if you're going to use a separate notice just for the California Consumer Privacy Act, it has to appear in there. And there needs to be some text along with it under the link, under the anchor text, basically describing what the right is. Now, then people will click on these links, and then you should have a page that they go to, probably just a simple form where they can submit the request. And once that request comes in, you have to honor it. So you cannot be selling that personal information to third parties. And again, what is a sale, and how broad is personal information? Those are topics for another video, but they're broader than you think. And in some cases, it may just be sharing information with a third party. So again, want to talk to your lawyer about that. Now, there are some weird little add-ons to the CCPA mandatory link requirements. So let's just talk about those real quick. And this is section 3 down there. So if somebody exercises their right to opt out, you cannot contact them for another 12 months asking them to opt back in. So basically, if on August 1st, 2019, I submit a request to you saying, hey, do not sell my personal information, you have to wait till August 1st, 2020 to contact me and say, hey, would you reconsider your decision? It's kind of an odd provision because, quite frankly, I think most consumers, if they opt out of the sale of their information, I don't know why a year later they would suddenly be willing to do it. If you want to go through, the process of sending out messages to try to get them to, change their mind, you're welcome to. But again, how many do you think are really going to change their mind? I think that number would be pretty low. You can't require the person to open an account. So when they click that mandatory link, they have to be taken to a page that is available on the exterior of the site. It cannot be buried in a membership area. It cannot be buried within a form where they have to first open an account to get to the form. It has to be somewhere on the exterior. So when they click that link, they go directly to the form, they fill it out, they submit it, you get the information. They don't have to take any other steps. The third oddity is that the consumer obviously can make a request on behalf of themselves, but other people can make a request on behalf of the consumer as well. I don't really understand why that's there, but it is. We don't know the specifics or the requirements around it because the legislature has assigned all of that to the California Attorney General. and the Attorney General is supposed to deal with those issues in the regulation that it's going to issue for the CCPA. Unfortunately, we don't have that regulation yet. The first draft is expected to be issued in possibly October 2019, and then a final version will probably come out in maybe January or February of 2020. So I wouldn't worry about that too much right now, but just know it's something that's out there. Now, there is a practical side to the do not sell my personal information links that you need to think about here. And there isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer here, but you just want to understand what the issue is, and you want to make sure that you have a consistent policy for addressing it. And that is, what's the beauty of a website or an app as far as a target audience goes? Well, the people who are going to be coming to your website, they're not just in California. They're located all over the country, all over the world. And so the interesting thing that kind of pops up here is the CCPA only applies to natural persons who are residents of California. So that means only somebody who's residing in California has any rights under the CCPA. So when you start getting, requests from people who live in, I don't know, New York or Iowa or some other state, they start clicking that do not sell my personal information link and submitting requests to you to stop selling their personal information. How are you going to deal with that? Because if they're in another state, you don't technically have to honor that request. But if you don't honor that request, well, there could be some backlash on social media. There could also be a scenario where perhaps somebody submits a negative Yelp review because of that. It's generally, I would think, going to be viewed as a negative decision on your part, bad publicity, and so on and so forth. So are you going to honor requests from all over the world, regardless of whether the person lives in California or not? Or are you just going to stick to California? Now, you're going to know your audience. You're going to have, pretty good idea of whether they would, care or not. And so you can make a decision there. Obviously you probably want to talk to your attorney and bat around that idea, but that's the scenario that you're looking at and you need to think through. It's a practical aspect of this requirement. So make sure you look at that. So that's it for the CCPA. Do not sell my personal information requirements. Again, if you have any questions or comments, just contact me at SoCalInternetLawyer.com. You can also post down in the comment section below, but please don't post anything that's sensitive or confidential, as there is no attorney-client provision in those areas. If you're interested in learning more about the CCPA, consider subscribing to this channel. We'll be posting a ton of CCPA videos. In fact, if you go over to our YouTube page, there is a playlist that just discusses CCPA topics, so you might be able to find answers to any questions you have there. And if you enjoyed the video, consider giving me a thumbs up. If not, I feel shame, give me a thumbs down. And if you know how to keep a dog from snoring, please let me know. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.